When the police showed up at my doorstep with news of a warrant for my son Carson's arrest, I felt like my world stopped. "Your son needs to be arrested," they said, and my mind turned to mush. Why? How could this happen? Questions swirled and vanished like mist in my brain as I stood there, rooted to the spot, unable to speak, my heart racing. The officers' imposing figures made it clear they weren't leaving without a discussion, stepping into the house as if to pin me against the wall with their presence. Panic surged through me. "He's suspected of stealing a significant amount of money," one explained, a hint of victory in his tone. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Carson? Involved in theft? Impossible. I'm Eleanor, 45, living a content life with my husband and Carson in a cozy home built from years of hard work. Lately, though, despite our happiness, anxiety had crept into my solitude, whispering doubts and fears about undone tasks, and the what-ifs of our seemingly perfect life. In an attempt to shake off these worries, I had turned to a daytime drama, hoping for a distraction. But even as the TV blared, my thoughts were elsewhere, drawn to the shelf where Carson's soccer trophies and certificates gleamed a testament to his dedication and the pride he brought us. Then the doorbell rang, slicing through my reverie. Who could it be at this hour? Turning the volume down on the TV, I lifted myself from the comfort of the couch, curious about who could be at the door. Perhaps it was a surprise package from my mother-in-law, who has a knack for sending over vegetables unexpectedly, claiming a disdain for too much back and forth. Or it could be one of the many items we've recently started buying online. My son Carson's new hobby seems to be clicking by now, and my husband has been caught up in the online shopping wave as well. With these thoughts meandering through my mind, I made my way to the door without a second thought to check the intercom first. Had I glanced at it, I might have braced myself for what was to come. But there I was, opening the door without the slightest hint of caution. The sight that greeted me was one I'd only ever seen on the screen during my drama marathons. 3 police officers stood at my doorstep, as real as the day. "Is this the Smith residence?" they asked, with a seriousness that sent a shiver down my spine. Confirming their question only seemed to open the floodgates to a reality I wasn't prepared for. "There's a warrant out for your son Carson's arrest," one officer declared, presenting a document that might as well have been written in another language for all the sense it made to me at that moment. Why? How? My mind raced with questions, each disappearing as quickly as it formed, leaving me rooted to the spot, speechless. The officers, with a determination that felt as heavy as the world, stepped forward, making it clear they weren't here for pleasantries. My instinct was to shut the door, to protect my sanctuary from the chaos they brought, but they were adamant, pressing forward to prevent me from closing them out. In that moment, my home felt smaller, my worries bigger, and the world outside, once distant and disconnected from my peaceful life, crashed into me with the weight of reality. Fear enveloped me as the police hinted at my son Carson's involvement in something serious. "Your son's here, right? We just want to chat a bit," they said with an edge in their voice that implied they weren't asking for permission as much as demanding entry. In a desperate bid for time, I blocked the doorway, my body a makeshift barrier. "Hold on, please. Can you explain what's happening?" "I'm lost here," I pleaded, hoping for some clarity, but deep down, I was clueless and scared. The officer holding what seemed to be a warrant sighed heavily, signaling this was no simple visit. "There's been a string of thefts nearby, and unfortunately, your son matches the description of our suspect," he explained, as if the pieces were already fitting together in his mind. The idea that Carson could be seen as a criminal was absurd to me. "Our suspect was seen running this way, and witnesses are confident they saw his face," he added, almost proudly. The thought alone made my head spin. Theft? Carson? It couldn't be. Despite the fear gripping me, I managed to catch bits and pieces of what the officer said next. He mentioned several thefts totaling around $800,000, but they were willing to settle, considering Carson's age. Settle? For $800,000? That's impossible. My son wouldn't do such a thing, I protested, my voice a mix of shock and defiance. The officer's tired response was almost scripted. Every parent believes their child incapable of wrongdoing. "But we'll need you to come up with the $800,000 to discuss further," he stated matter-of-factly. His words felt like a blow, and in a moment of desperation, I asked them to wait outside, needing a moment alone to gather my thoughts. "No, we'll wait here," he insisted, blocking any attempt to close the door on this nightmare. In a frantic search for privacy and a sliver of control, I blurted out, "I need to use the bathroom." "Surely you can't just invade someone's home while they're in there, right? Can you give me just 10 minutes? The absurdity of negotiating for bathroom privacy in the face of such allegations struck me, but I clung to any semblance of normalcy in a situation that was anything but. The overwhelming presence of the officers at my doorstep was enough to send my mind into overdrive. The need to steady my racing thoughts was immediate, especially given the intimidating sight of the officers. "I really need to use the bathroom. Please, just give me a moment," I pleaded, my voice teetering on the edge of desperation. To my surprise, my urgent plea caused a moment's hesitation in the officers, providing me the sliver of opportunity I needed. I quickly secured the door behind them, the sound of the lock clicking ushering in a brief sense of relief amid the storm of emotions that ensued. "Mom, open the door," came the firm demand from outside, their knocks echoing through the hall. Concerned about the noise disturbing the neighbors, I retreated, promising to return shortly. Inside the bathroom, I tried to gather my thoughts despite not needing to use it. It became my sanctuary for a brief moment, a place to muster the courage I needed to face the situation head-on. The idea that Carson could be linked to criminal activities was unfathomable. This had to be a misunderstanding. After composing myself and reaffirming my belief in Carson's innocence, I braced myself to confront the officers once more. Unlocking the door, I was met with their persistent gaze. "We just want to make sure everything's all right. Your son hasn't tried to flee, has he?" one officer pressed, hinting at a search. "Absolutely not. My son is innocent," I repeated, standing my ground despite their insistence. Their claims of having witness testimonies and even camera footage took me by surprise. "You hadn't mentioned camera footage before," I countered, growing skeptical of their shifting narrative. The officers insisted on the existence of evidence, but their story seemed to evolve with every word. It was clear to me that something wasn't adding up. Their earlier vague accusations were now supposedly backed by evidence, yet their approach and explanations only fueled my doubts about their credibility. As the officers pushed their narrative about my son Carson being involved in criminal activities, their story seemed to morph with every breath. The inconsistency of their claims raised alarm bells in my mind. Something was off. Their supposed uniform appeared more like costumes straight out of a TV show, and their behavior was increasingly suspect. When I locked eyes with one of the younger officers, he quickly looked away, confirming my suspicions. "Enough is enough," they insisted, trying to force their way in despite my protests. But I stood firm, refusing to let them enter without a warrant or just cause. My resistance, however, was met with brute force as the largest officer pushed me aside. I stumbled and fell, but they seemed unfazed, continuing their search without permission. I scrambled to my feet, demanding they stop their unwarranted intrusion. "You can't do this! You have no right to go through our belongings," I shouted, but my words fell on deaf ears. They rummaged through our personal items, and I felt a mix of anger and helplessness. When one of them dared to touch the drawer holding our wedding rings, I slammed it shut with a force that echoed through the house. My protests continued as they made their way to Carson's room. "He's asleep! Don't disturb him!" I yelled, but it was too late. They barged in only to halt abruptly at the sight of Carson, who calmly greeted them. With a smile and open arms, he showed no sign of guilt or fear, completely undermining their accusations. The scene that unfolded only deepened my conviction that this was a grave misunderstanding, or worse, a deliberate attempt to intimidate us based on false pretenses. Seeing my son Carson in his current state, confined to a nursing bed equipped with a pressure sore prevention mattress and surrounded by essential aids like a wheelchair, made the officers pause. Their faces reflected a mix of confusion and realization as Carson explained. As you can see, I'm not in any condition to commit theft, let alone run away. He gestured towards his wheelchair, emphasizing his inability to move his lower body without assistance, let alone leave the house on his own. The officers, previously firm and almost aggressive, now seemed awkward and remorseful. "We're sorry. It seems we've made a mistake," one admitted, the tone of his voice softening as he offered a conciliatory smile. Carson, with a grace that belied his situation, accepted their apology with a slight nod, relieved yet dignified in his response. As they turned to leave, one officer lingered, approaching Carson with a familiar, "Hey!" Carson's response, filled with recognition and surprise, brought a sudden warmth to the room. "Leah? Is that you?" The bond between Carson and the officer, now revealed to be his childhood friend Leah, was palpable. Their history of shared dreams and days spent playing soccer together came flooding back. Leah, once Carson's teammate and close confidant, had moved away years ago, leaving a gap that had never really been filled. Carson shared the painful truth of his recent accident, revealing the extent of his injuries with a bravery that masked his underlying sadness. The moment was tender, a mix of reunion and revelation, as Carson quickly covered his legs again, not wanting his condition to define their interaction. Instead, he focused on the reconnecting with Leah, their shared memories, and the unspoken understanding between them. Their conversation, a mixture of past reminiscences and current realities, showed the resilience of their connection. Despite the years apart and the drastic changes in their lives, the bond between Carson and Leah remained unbroken, a testament to their enduring friendship and the unexpected paths life can take. After so many years, the reunion between Carson and Leah, now a police officer, took a poignant turn. Leah, confronted with Carson's question about soccer, revealed a deep-seated sense of inadequacy and resignation. "I never had your talent," Leah admitted softly, hinting at the burdens he carried. Burdens I knew all too well stemmed from his family's troubled circumstances. Leah's father struggled with employment and alcohol, leading to financial distress that forced their a move that was more about escaping debt than chasing opportunities. Carson, ever the optimist and supporter, refused to let Leah wallow in self-doubt. "Talent? You were the most dedicated player I knew." "Your perseverance inspired me," Carson encouraged, his words lifting the heavy air. He reminded Leah of his strengths, not just as a former soccer player, but now as a dedicated police officer. Despite Carson's own challenges, he saw the potential for them to share the field once again, adapting to his new reality with hope. The emotional weight of the conversation brought tears to Leah's eyes, a testament to the struggles he faced and the guilt that weighed him down. As the other officers prepared to leave, their exit halted by my stern look. Leah made a bold, heart-rending declaration. "I'm out," he announced, addressing his colleagues with a newfound resolve. His admission revealed a tangled web of pressure and wrongdoing, a misguided attempt to resolve his family's financial woes by targeting what he believed to be affluent homes. This revelation marked a turning point, exposing the frailties and complexities of human nature, the profound impact of childhood connections, and the courage it takes to confront one's mistake. As Leah faced the consequences of his actions, it was clear that this moment, fraught with emotion and hard truths, was a crucial step towards redemption and healing, not just for him, but for all involved. In a moment that seemed suspended in time, the situation escalated quickly when one of the disguised officers, fueled by anger, attacked Leah. I tried to step in, my voice lost in a silent scream, but fear rooted me to the spot. The violence that unfolded was chilling. A punch thrown with vicious intent met Leah's face, marking him with the immediate evidence of their brutality. The aggression didn't stop with just a punch. As Leah fell, another demand was hurled his way, a harsh reminder of the debts that shadowed his family. I watched, helpless and horrified, as Leah bore the brunt of their fury. Yet, in his lowest moment, Leah found the strength to face his actions, offering a heartfelt apology to Carson and expressing a willingness to right his wrongs, despite the cost to his pride and the physical pain he endured. The tense standoff was broken by the arrival of genuine law enforcement, a moment of relief that washed over me as the imposters were detained. My earlier call for help, a desperate plea made amidst fear and uncertainty, had summoned the real protectors of peace to our doorstep. As the dust settled, Lee shared a moment of raw honesty with us, his regret palpable. He was escorted away by the police, leaving behind a silence filled with mixed emotions and reflections on the day's harrowing events. The ordeal left us in a state of relief and contemplation, only interrupted by the return of my husband. His concern and apologies for his absence were met with reassurances of our safety, the most crucial victory of the day. The day's events had tested our resolve, but ultimately we remained unshaken, united by the ordeal and grateful for the peace that had been restored to our home. I came to understand that Leah was the sole member of the trio who had come clean to the authorities. They were old high school friends who had turned to orchestrating thefts within our community. Their modus operandi involved targeting affluent families, casting false accusations of theft upon their children, and then pressuring the distraught parents into paying a ransom. The arrest warrants they wielded were forgeries, and their police uniforms, nothing more than convincing costumes. This deceitful strategy remained successful until this incident unveiled their true intentions, leading to their capture. Leah had found himself entangled in this web of deceit as a last resort to manage the burgeoning debts that plagued his family. The promise that his contributions to their scheme, leveraging his intimate knowledge of our neighborhood, would alleviate his financial burdens convinced him to join their ploys. This insight explains their familiarity with our town and the delay in their apprehension. Upon their arrest, justice was swift, delivering severe consequences for their actions, especially for invading homes under the guise of law enforcement. Despite the gravity of the situation, my son Carson remained composed, perhaps understanding the complexity of Leah's circumstances. Carson's intuition had sensed something amiss from the onset, noting the discrepancy between the officer's physique and the Lee he remembered. These observations, coupled with the avoidance of eye contact and a voice that stirred memories of Leah, underscored his suspicions. As we ponder Leah's future and potential return, optimism prevails. Carson believes in Leah's resilience and capacity for redemption, a sentiment I share. This ordeal has revealed the depth of our connections and the strength of our character, affirming our ability to face adversity with grace and hope for better days ahead. Carson, with unwavering optimism, had always believed in Leah's true character despite the turmoil. A month after the incident, as I brought breakfast into Carson's room, his first thoughts were not of food, but of a letter he was expecting. Indeed, a simple envelope had arrived for him, and it was from Leah. Carson's eagerness was palpable. Before even glancing at his breakfast, he asked about the letter. Handing it over, I watched his face light up with a smile as he read Leah's words. Leah expressed a wish to play soccer together again, mentioning he had been keeping active. This news brought joy to both of us. Beside Carson's bed was a specialized wheelchair, designed for playing soccer. Carson had recently set a new goal for himself to master power chair soccer and eventually play alongside Leah. His determination was inspiring, pushing him to embrace new challenges and adapt to his circumstances with a positive outlook. Watching my son, I was filled with admiration. Carson's journey reminded me that life's obstacles are not insurmountable. Inspired by his resilience and optimism, I committed to embracing the present fully and pursuing my goals with newfound vigor. Carson's ability to look beyond his difficulties and focus on the possibilities of the future was a powerful reminder of the strength of the human spirit. Together, we looked forward to the day Carson and Leah would share the soccer field once more, a testament to their enduring friendship and shared love for the game.